Hello, Dynasty women. Sometimes silence is the loudest rejection and the most intelligent decision. You ever wonder why the women who once carried conversations, carried men's egos, and carried entire relationships suddenly carry nothing but their peace? Here's a wild fact. In a recent survey, over 68% of independent women say they've entirely stopped initiating conversations or showing interest in men. Not because they're bitter, broken, or bored, but because they've outgrown the game entirely. Welcome to the world of Sigma females. The women who don't just walk away, they vanish from the arena altogether. But why? Why would women who are confident, charismatic, and completely capable of making the first move suddenly go silent like an ancient code no one can crack? Is it pride, trauma, astrology? Relax, Scorpio, it's not always about you. No, it's deeper than that. It's strategic, it's self-protective, and in some cases, it's savage. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about knowing you were never meant to be caught by just anyone. Let's unravel the 12 brutally honest, extraordinary reasons why Sigma females no longer approach men, and why that silence might just be the loudest revolution in modern dating. Number 1. They understand their rarity isn't for mass consumption. They've realized they're rare, and they're done pretending otherwise. Sigma females are not out here trying to be universally liked, approved of, or understood. That ship sailed when they saw what happens when you make yourself too available in a world addicted to instant gratification and low-effort connection. They used to give people the benefit of the doubt, extend grace, open up just enough to give someone a shot. But over time, they noticed something. The more accessible they were, the more they were misunderstood, misused, or mistaken for something ordinary. So they stopped giving easy access. Sigma females know they're not for everyone, and they like it that way. They don't shrink themselves to be digestible. They don't soften their strength to avoid intimidating others. And they're no longer interested in being palatable just to attract the kind of man who only understands surface-level charm. They've seen the pattern too many times. The moment they show depth, independence, or emotional intelligence, some men either try to control it, compete with it, or quietly back away. That's not rejection to them, it's clarity. Approaching men used to be something they did when they were still under the illusion that effort equals connection. Now they understand that the people who get it, and those who don't never will, so they don't initiate. Not out of arrogance, but because they've curated their energy too carefully to waste it on someone who isn't equipped to meet them at their level. They don't want quantity, they want quality. They're not trying to impress, only align. And alignment isn't something that needs chasing, forcing, or persuading. It just is. Their rarity isn't meant for mass consumption. It's meant to be recognized by someone who sees value beyond the surface. Someone who isn't intimidated by her solitude, her silence, or her strength. Until then, she stays silent, not because she's waiting, but because she's already full. Number 2, they know initiating doesn't make the outcome any better. She's tried it all, being bold, being chill, being direct, being subtle. And after all the trial runs, the emotionally unavailable men, the hot and cold maybe connections, and the slow burn situationships that burned her energy more than anything else, she's come to a simple conclusion. Initiating doesn't change the outcome. If a connection isn't meant to last, it won't, whether she started it or not. Whether she sends the first message, cracks the first joke, or drops the first hint, it still ends the same if the foundation isn't solid. So she stopped treating initiation like it's a magic key to a deeper relationship. She's done investing effort in dynamics that only end up showing her the same red flags, just with different packaging. What she's noticed is that starting things often sets the tone for how they'll continue. If she leads with energy, interest, and initiative, she often ends up carrying the whole thing too, checking in, planning, holding space, giving grace. It becomes a performance rather than a partnership. And the moment she pulls back, the whole thing collapses, revealing it wasn't built on mutual effort. It was balanced on her. So now, she doesn't initiate. Not because she's stubborn or playing games, but because she respects herself enough to let the energy be mutual from the very beginning. She's not here to light a fire in a man who won't bring his own spark. She's not building momentum alone anymore. If he's not moving, she's not pushing. Initiating once felt like empowerment. Now, it feels like unnecessary labor for a result that doesn't change. She'd rather stay still and aligned than chase a vibe that dies the moment she stops breathing life into it. She's not avoiding love, she's just done building it alone. Number 3. They know masculinity isn't measured by muscles or money. Sigma females have seen enough to know that a man's worth isn't defined by his six-pack or his salary. Those things might grab attention, sure, but they don't hold it, not for her. She's not impressed by aesthetics or status. She's interested in substance, something most people can't fake for long. She's met men who flex their muscles but can't hold a conversation beyond surface-level talk. She's dated men with money who couldn't offer emotional presence if their life depended on it. At this point, flashy cars, designer clothes, and polished charm are just background noise. If a man can't meet her on a deeper, more conscious level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, he's invisible to her. Not because she's cold, but because she's awake. She's no longer pulled in by a curated image. She listens for how a man speaks about others when they're not in the room. She pays attention to whether he asks questions that go beyond, "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" She notices if he leads with ego or with empathy. If all she sees is performance, she won't even blink in his direction. Initiating contact would feel like entertaining a distraction, and she's not in the business of entertaining. She's not impressed by potential unless it's paired with self-awareness. She wants to see depth, how he thinks, how he feels, how he handles silence. If that's missing, it doesn't matter how successful or attractive he is. There's no spark, no pull, no reason to engage. She's not looking for perfection, but she refuses to settle for presentation over presence. Masculinity, to her, is about groundedness, emotional intelligence, and quiet confidence, not noise, not numbers, not narcissism. If he leads with flash and not foundation, she won't follow. Not with her attention, not with her energy, and definitely not with her time. Number 4. They're no longer willing to be someone's growth opportunity. Sigma females have been through the emotional trenches. They've carried men through identity crises, father wounds, commitment issues, and existential breakdowns dressed up as deep conversations. They've sat across from men who didn't want a partner. They wanted a therapist they could sleep with. And for a while, they showed up. They listened, they helped, they guided, until they realized they were being used as tools for transformation, rather than being seen as whole, complex individuals worthy of reciprocity. These men didn't want to grow with them. They wanted to grow because of them. And once the lessons were learned, once the emotional hand-holding had done its job, those men either disappeared or moved on to someone else, carrying with them the clarity the Sigma helped unlock, leaving her drained, invisible, and quietly resentful. She's not doing that anymore. She's not signing up to be someone's emotional life coach or spiritual scaffolding. She's not here to walk a man through his awakening. That's his journey. If he hasn't done the inner work, if he's still projecting, still avoiding, still expecting a woman to save him from himself, she's not interested. Being emotionally intelligent isn't the same as being emotionally available for other people's unfinished business. Sigma females have the wisdom, sure, but they've learned that just because they can guide doesn't mean they should. That kind of giving used to feel like purpose. Now it just feels like sacrifice with no return. She's not a stepping stone on a man's road to self-discovery. She's not here to hold the flashlight while he fumbles in the dark. She wants someone who's already been through his own fire and didn't need to burn her in the process. If he's still figuring it out, that's fine. But she's no longer offering herself up as the classroom. Let him grow, let him evolve, but not at her expense. Number 5. They've mastered their own sexual energy. Sigma females have reached a point where their sexual energy isn't something they use to get attention. It's something they protect. They've grown out of the phase where attraction felt like power and being desired felt like worth. That game? It's old. They no longer crave the dopamine hit of a stare, a compliment, or a double tap on a filtered photo. That doesn't move them. If anything, it bores them. Their sensuality is no longer for public consumption. It's not a weapon, not a tactic, and definitely not a performance. They don't flirt out of boredom, post thirst traps to feel seen, or use seduction to manipulate outcomes. That kind of validation is loud, hollow, and cheap. And Sigma women operate on a different frequency now. They've learned how to contain their sexual energy, not leak it for approval. That containment, that's power. They don't need a man to tell them they're sexy. They know. And more importantly, they've redefined what sexiness even means. It's not in the way they dress, move, or speak. It's in their boundaries, their confidence, their calm refusal to beg for attention. Their eroticism isn't a tool to bait. It's an energy that radiates quietly, unapologetically, and without invitation. They've mastered the art of desire without desperation. That means they don't approach men just to feel wanted. They don't initiate just to spark tension. They don't play games just to test reactions. If the connection isn't real, intentional, and energetically clean, they're not interested, no matter how attractive the man is. They're not afraid of their sexual power, but they've stopped performing it for the male gaze. They don't need to be seen to feel powerful. Their sensuality is sacred, and only those who treat it with reverence ever get close enough to feel it. If he's expecting flirtation, signals, or seduction to come first, he'll be left wondering. She doesn't bait, she embodies, and that changes everything. Number 6, they don't want to lead in love. Sigma females have led in every area of life, careers, crisis, creativity, and even healing the broken men they once believed could grow beside them. They've carried conversations, planned dates, initiated apologies, set emotional tone, and done the heavy lifting in connections that were supposed to be mutual. And now, they're tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind of tired that comes from constantly showing up in relationships as the engine, the map, and the driver. They're done leading in love, not because they can't, but because they shouldn't have to. They've come to understand that real connection isn't about effort alone. It's about polarity, that natural magnetism that comes when two people bring different energies to the table and meet in the middle. And for that to happen, she can't be the initiator, the motivator, and the emotional architect. She doesn't want to teach a man how to pursue, how to care, or how to show up. That's not romantic. It's exhausting. She's no longer interested in being the one who makes it happen. If he's not stepping up, she's stepping out. Leading in love turns romance into a project. And she's not looking for another task on her already packed list. She doesn't want to coax emotional availability out of a man like it's a secret skill. She doesn't want to chase vulnerability, lead the connection, and then still be called too much or too strong when he can't keep up. She wants to receive for once, not be impressed, but met, not managed, but felt, not pursued with strategy, but with presence. If he can't meet her in that space, if he needs prompting, pushing, or a permission slip to be a man, he's not for her. She's not building another man up just to be let down. She doesn't need a student. She's not writing another love curriculum. She wants polarity, not a project. And if she's the one always leading, it's not love. It's labor. Number 7. They've witnessed too many men use feminism as a manipulation tool. Sigma females have seen through the performance. They've heard the lines, "I love a strong woman," "Independent women are so attractive," and "We need more empowered females in the world." It sounds good on paper. It looks progressive on a dating profile. But when it comes to reality, when she shows up in her full strength, confidence, and unapologetic presence, those same men shrink. Or worse, they retaliate. Because for many men, feminism has become a costume, not a conviction. A trendy language they adopt to look evolved, only to turn controlling, dismissive, or passive-aggressive in the moment they're faced with a woman who actually lives the strength they claim to admire. Sigma females have watched it happen over and over. Men who praise female empowerment until they realize empowered women don't tolerate emotional laziness, dishonesty, or inconsistent effort. It's not just disappointing, it's manipulative. These men use feminist language as bait, luring in high-value women under the illusion of emotional safety. But when the woman calls them out, sets standards, or doesn't need saving, the facade breaks. Suddenly she's too intense, too cold, or too much. Translation: she didn't shrink herself for his comfort. Sigma females no longer engage with this contradiction. They don't initiate anymore because they're done doing emotional reconnaissance, figuring out if a man's allyship is genuine, or just another strategy to attract women who know their worth. She's not wasting her time decoding faux wokeness. She wants alignment, not optics. Truth, not trendiness. A man who values equality not because it's fashionable, but because it's how he lives, consistently, quietly, and without needing applause. So she doesn't approach. Not because she's bitter, but because she's sharp. She can smell performance from a mile away. And if his so-called respect for strong women can't survive real accountability, then he was never really about it in the first place. Number 8. The male ego isn't built to handle a woman who doesn't need him. Sigma females have learned that being self-sufficient, emotionally grounded, and deeply uninterested in playing damsel doesn't sit well with every man. In fact, for many, it triggers something deep, the kind of ego discomfort that turns admiration into defensiveness. She's seen it happen more times than she can count. She shows up with clarity, authenticity, and not a single ounce of neediness. And instead of inspiring connection, it makes some men feel threatened, irrelevant, or inadequate. She's not arrogant. She's not trying to prove anything, but she knows who she is, what she wants, and what she won't tolerate. And when she enters a room with that energy, it unsettles men who are used to being needed before they're respected. The truth is, a lot of male egos aren't built to handle a woman who doesn't orbit around their validation. And when she doesn't play the game, when she doesn't fawn, flatter, or pretend to be smaller, it throws everything off for them. Some will try to compete with her. Some will try to humble her. Others will just retreat, quietly resenting her for not needing them to feel whole. She's even had moments where her success, stability, or self-possession became a silent reason for distance, because he couldn't see how he fit into a life that didn't require saving. So now, she doesn't initiate, not because she thinks she's better than anyone, but because she's tired of performing emotional gymnastics just to make a man feel comfortable in the presence of a woman who doesn't need his resources, status, or protection. She doesn't need to be completed. She wants to be met. And if her independence feels like a threat instead of an invitation to level up, she's not going to stick around to soften the blow. She'd rather be alone than shrink herself just to make someone else feel like a man. Number 9. They know energy exchange isn't free. Sigma females understand that every interaction, especially romantic ones, is an exchange of energy. Not just time or effort, but focus, emotional bandwidth, and mental clarity. They've learned that even a simple message, a smile, or an initiated conversation isn't just being nice. It's a decision to open a channel. And they don't open those channels lightly anymore. They've been generous in the past. They've extended energy to men who didn't know how to hold it, who took without giving, or who interpreted kindness as availability. And over time, that emotional generosity left them drained. Now, they protect their energy like currency. Because it is. It fuels their creativity, their peace, their purpose. And pouring it into someone who doesn't reciprocate, that's a cost they're no longer willing to pay. Before they approach anyone, they subconsciously run a full audit. Is this man emotionally intelligent? Does his presence feel expansive or heavy? Is this connection rooted in mutual curiosity, or will it turn into another situation where I give more than I get? If the answers don't check out, they won't take another step. Not out of fear, but out of value. Their emotional economy is stable, intentional, and no longer available for reckless transactions. They know what it costs to offer genuine energy in a world full of shallow exchanges. They know how much bandwidth it takes to be present, vulnerable, and open, and they refuse to spend it on connections that don't feel aligned. They won't initiate just to feel seen. They won't reach out hoping someone else might one day reciprocate. If the potential return isn't high in integrity, depth, and presence, it's not worth the investment. Sigma females don't chase. They calculate. They protect their flow. Because the right energy doesn't require them to overspend. It multiplies what's already there. And that's the only kind of transaction they're interested in now. Number 10. The dating pool feels radioactive. The dating pool doesn't just feel toxic anymore. It feels radioactive. It's beyond the usual red flags and emotional immaturity. It's spiritual contamination disguised as connection. Sigma females have clocked the patterns, and at this point the entire scene looks like a slow-moving explosion of dysfunction, all wrapped in glossy filters and clever bios. They've encountered manipulation sold as charisma, men who know exactly what to say to sound emotionally intelligent, but crumble the moment real vulnerability is required. They've met walking trauma responses wearing leather jackets and calling it depth. They've dealt with egos so inflated they mistake dominance for confidence and silence for mystery, when really it's just avoidance. And after seeing all that, they've decided, I'm not the one diving in first. It's not cynicism, it's discernment. Sigma females aren't bitter about love. They're just highly selective about what energies they let near their nervous systems. And right now, the dating pool looks like it needs a hazmat suit and spiritual sage, not flirting and first moves. She doesn't want to give someone a chance just to discover she's playing therapist to a man who calls emotional unavailability not being dramatic. She's done mistaking chaos for chemistry, done decoding breadcrumb communication, done trying to see the best in someone who hasn't even begun to face the worst in himself. If the pool is full of performative vulnerability, hyper-curated personalities, and attention addiction disguised as openness, she's not stepping in to save it. She's stepping away entirely. So no, she's not approaching. Not because she's jaded, but because she values her peace more than the temporary thrill of what if. She's not here for radioactive romance dressed up as opportunity. If the dating pool feels contaminated, she's not testing the waters. She's building her own ocean. And anyone who wants access better come healed, honest, and ready to swim in something real. Number 11. They've outgrown the pick-me game. Sigma females used to play the game without even realizing it. Not in the obvious, performative way, but subtly. They were more available than they wanted to be, more patient than they should have been. They smiled when they didn't feel like it, laughed a little louder, responded a little faster, showed a little more interest, just enough to seem approachable, agreeable. Low maintenance. Not desperate, but just strategically pleasant. It was quiet, but it was still the pick-me game. Now that version of them is extinct. They've outgrown the need to be chosen. They don't audition for approval, and they don't shapeshift to make someone feel comfortable enough to maybe consider them. They've realized how much self-abandonment hides in that behavior, how many tiny betrayals it takes to look cool in a world that rewards women for being easygoing, unbothered, and emotionally available on cue. They're done with that. They no longer initiate anything that even smells like seeking external validation. If a conversation, a flirtation, or a connection feels like a performance just to be seen as worthy, they pull the plug before it even begins. Their energy isn't a resume. Their presence isn't an application. They're not trying to be picked. They're deciding whether someone is even worth choosing in the first place. They know their value isn't determined by who wants them. They're not counting likes, responses, or breadcrumbs. They're watching for energy, authenticity, realness. If they have to contort to fit into someone's idea of ideal, they'd rather remain completely unavailable. Because love to them isn't about proving your worth. It's about being met where you are, without needing to twist, tame, or tone yourself down to get there. The game only works on women who still think love is something you win. Sigma females know better now. They don't compete, they don't perform, they don't chase, and if the only way to be seen is to try harder, they'll gladly disappear. Number 12. They've seen behind the curtain of male confidence. Sigma females have spent enough time observing to know that much of what passes for male confidence is just performance. Not grounded, self-aware presence, but polished insecurity wrapped in charm, loud opinions, and a curated social image. They've seen behind the curtain, and what's back there isn't strength, it's ego scaffolding, carefully held together by external validation, mostly from women. These men know how to walk into a room and own it. They know the right words, the right tone, the right timing. But scratch the surface. Ask them a question they weren't expecting, challenge their opinion without stroking their ego, refuse to mirror their charm with automatic praise, and the mask starts to slip. The laughter gets tighter, the vibe shifts, the confidence starts cracking. Because it was never real. It was a performance built to be applauded, not challenged. Sigma females have studied this pattern. They've sat across the table from men who seemed unshakable until she didn't give them the response they were used to. And then came the subtle resentment, the passive-aggressive comments, the withdrawal. Because what they actually wanted wasn't a connection. It was confirmation that they were still wanted, still impressive, still dominant. She doesn't feed that illusion anymore. She won't inflate someone's self-worth just to be seen as agreeable. She's not here to audition for someone's fragile masculinity. And because she doesn't swoon or perform the usual validation script, many of these men don't know what to do with her. They call her intimidating, when what they really mean is immune to the act. So she doesn't initiate, not because she's guarded, but because she knows what lives behind a lot of faux confidence. She can sense when a man's identity is glued together by female attention, and she refuses to become another patch holding it up. If his sense of self isn't real without applause, he's not someone she'll ever walk toward, let alone chase. In the end, Sigma females don't initiate because they've learned to trust themselves over external validation. They've peeled back the layers of the world's illusions, whether it's shallow attraction, manipulative games, or hollow performances, and found a deeper truth. Their worth is not up for negotiation, and their energy is too precious to give away without intention. They've realized that love, connection, and respect aren't about chasing after someone to feel seen. They're about being met by someone who recognizes their value without needing to be told. They know what they bring to the table, and they've learned that their peace is more valuable than any fleeting connection built on anything less than authenticity. They've outgrown the idea of being a stepping stone for someone else's growth, and they no longer entertain the illusion of love wrapped in manipulation or ego. They aren't cold, they're simply aware. Aware of how much energy it takes to engage in a relationship that isn't fully aligned. Aware of the patterns that drain rather than nourish. Sigma females aren't waiting for someone to pick them. They're choosing who deserves their presence. They're not initiating because they know that anything less than real connection isn't worth their time. They've learned that they don't need anyone to complete them. They are whole, and in their own stillness, they found the power to say, "This is me. Take it or leave it." So if you ever wonder why she doesn't make the first move, it's not because she's uninterested. It's because she knows her worth, and she's waiting for someone who does too. And when that person shows up, they'll find a woman who's not only worth pursuing, but one whose presence is an invitation to a partnership built on mutual respect, depth, and alignment. And that, in its truest form, is the kind of love worth initiating. If you've resonated with what you've read, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more deep dives into the world of unique personalities and powerful perspectives. Like this video if you felt every word, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth, and leave a comment below. Let's keep this conversation going. I'd love to know your thoughts and what you want to explore next. Remember, the journey to self-empowerment starts with the courage to embrace who you truly are. And together, we're redefining the way we show up in the world. Stay tuned for more content that challenges, inspires, and transforms.